In 2026, the gaming industry is fighting a war, and the battlefield is your amygdala. Everywhere you look, games are screaming at you, they have daily login bonuses designed to trigger fear of missing out, they have battle passes that demand you play for 60 hours a month or lose your investment, they have flashing notifications, red dots, and retention mechanics engineered by psychologists to keep your dopamine receptors firing every 4 seconds. They are terrified that if you stop clicking for even a single moment, you will realise you aren't actually having fun. And then there is Tailside, a game with no combat, no fail state, no risk, no daily quests. This begs the question that I've been wrestling with all week. In an economy built on infinite content, can a game with zero friction actually hold your attention? Or have our brains been so fried by the dopamine treadmill that we can no longer appreciate the quiet? Today we aren't just reviewing a coffee simulator, we are testing our own ability to sit still. This is JaeTeeGames, your guide to the cozy side of gaming, and today we are trading our tea for espresso to look at Tailside Cozy Cafe Sim. If you've been scrolling through Twitter or TikTok, you've probably seen this game. The pixel art is undeniably gorgeous, but as we always ask here, is it actually a game or is it just a vibe? Is it worth your money or is it just pretty screenshots? And real quick, if you value these deep dives into the quiet side of gaming, hype this video to help it break through the noise of the algorithm, and go ahead and hit that like button. It's the digital equivalent of tipping your barista. To truly understand what Tailside is trying to do, we have to look at its lineage. For the last 5 years, the coffee shop vibe in gaming was dominated by one titan, Coffee Talk. Now, I love Coffee Talk, it is a masterpiece of empathy, but let's be honest about the mechanics, it was essentially a visual novel. You were there to read, and the brewing mechanic, selecting the ingredients and pressing a button, was almost an afterthought. It was a fidget spinner, and it was something to keep your hands busy while you consumed a story about elves and succubi having relationship problems. Tailside takes that aesthetic but flips the priority. This isn't a visual novel with a coffee minigame, it is a management sim with a story sprinkled on top. It feels like the developers looked at the genre and asked, what if the player actually had to work? You play as a cafe owner in a world populated by woodland creatures, but unlike Animal Crossing or Stardew Valley, you are not saving the town centre, you aren't dating the locals, and you aren't mining for ore in a dungeon to upgrade your tools. You are, quite simply, making coffee. It is also important to contrast this with the other side of the coffee genre, the mobile market. If you search Coffee Sim on the App Store, you will find hundreds of games. But they aren't simulations, they are ad delivery systems. They are designed to frustrate you. The machine takes 4 hours to upgrade unless you pay $1.99. The customer leaves angry unless you watch a 30-second ad for crypto. Tailside is the antithesis of this. It is a premium experience. When you buy a machine, you have the machine. When you serve a customer, you do it because it's fun, not because a timer is threatening you. This purity is rare, and it cleanses the palate. The story here is fascinating because of how background it is. It's delivered through a fragmented environmental approach. You get snippets of gossip from customers, and you get headlines in the daily paper. It creates a heart for the game. You start to care about whether the local bakery is going out of business or who won the town election, but it never demands you stop playing to read a wall of text. It respects that you are here for the loop. This is a risk. By moving the story to the background, the game is betting everything on the gameplay. If the act of making the coffee isn't fun, there is no mystery to keep you pulling the lever. So let's dissect that lever, because in my opinion, this game features some of the best sound design and tactile feedback in the entire indie scene. I want to talk about a concept I call digital tactility. We often talk about game feel in shooters, how the gun recoil feels, how the movement snaps, but game feel is just as important in a cozy game. If the act of making a latte feels floaty or disconnected, the entire illusion falls apart. Tailside avoids the menu fatigue of other sims by turning every step of the coffee process into a distinct physical input. Step 1, you add coffee to the grinder. Step 2, you grind the coffee. Step 3, add to the flask. Step 4, heat the coffee. Step 5, heat the milk. And Step 6, add the art. It sounds like a checklist, and on paper it is, but in practice, it functions like a rhythm game. Think about playing Guitar Hero. You aren't actually playing a guitar, but your brain enters a flow state because of the predictable rhythmic inputs. Tailside is doing the exact same thing, just at 60 beats per minute instead of 200. This loop is meditative. It sits in that perfect middle ground of game design. It's not so complex that it becomes stressful like Cook Serve Delicious, where you're panic typing recipes and sweating, but it's not so automated that it's boring. I want to specifically highlight the grinding mechanic. There is something primal about holding a button and watching a bar fill up while the crunchy sound plays. It scratches a very specific itch in the brain. It's the same satisfaction as popping bubble wrap or organising a desk. If the sound design was weak, this would be a chore, but because the audio is so crisp, it becomes ASMR. You aren't doing work, you're receiving sensory feedback. I found myself falling into a trance with this game. About 10 hours in, I realised I wasn't even looking at the orders anymore, I was just flowing. It reminds me a lot of unpacking. In unpacking, the gameplay is just taking things out of a box, but because the Foley work was so good, placing a book on a shelf felt significant. In Tailside, the act of handing a coffee to a customer has that same weight. You feel like a craftsperson. If you enjoy this kind of detailed breakdown where we actually care about the sound of a coffee grinder, you are in the right place. Subscribe to join the Tea Time crew. We cover the cozy and indie scene every Monday, Wednesday and Friday, so come pull up a chair. However, we have to address the complexity illusion. While the loop is satisfying, it doesn't actually get harder. A macchiato is just an espresso with a dot of milk. A latte is just an espresso with more milk. The game tries to trick you into thinking it's getting difficult by adding syrups or multiple orders, but the core rhythm never changes. If you are a player who needs the game to challenge you, to force you to learn new skills, you might find this repetitive by hour 5. Some reviewers have suggested an auto brew button for the late game so you can focus on management, but I completely disagree. If you automate the brewing, you remove the soul of the game. The repetition is the point. The zen comes from doing the same thing over and over again until you perfect it. It is a digital mantra. But you can't just brew coffee forever, you also have to run a business. And this brings us to the economy, and the single most important setting you need to change if you want to enjoy this game. Let's talk about the math, because even in a cozy game, capitalism comes for us all. The core loop is simple: sell coffee, get coins, buy nicer tables. But when I first started playing, the pacing felt wrong. A latte sells for roughly 12 to 15 coins, a nice rug might cost upwards of 300 coins. Do the math. That is 20 perfect lattes for one rug. On the default settings, the days felt too short. I would just be getting into the groove of serving customers, finding my flow, and suddenly the shop would close. I was struggling to hit the order target bonuses, the extra cash you get for serving a certain number of drinks perfectly. I felt rushed, and rushed is the enemy of cozy. Here is a pro tip for the grounded players: lengthen the days. The game has a slider in the settings that lets you adjust how fast the in-game clock ticks. I highly recommend pushing this to 125% or even 150%. Once I did this, the game clicked, and it accomplished two things. First, it gave me breathing room. I could admire the art, listen to the music, and not stress about the clock. Second, it allowed me to serve 30% more customers per day. This meant I was hitting those bonus targets every single time, and my bank account flushed with cash. This change transforms the game from a time management stress fest into a process game. It creates a satisfying accumulation of wealth. And you want that money, because the decorating system is surprisingly robust. You aren't just placing preset furniture sets, you can mix and match styles, industrial brick walls with cottagecore plants, and the grid is snappy. I actually liked that the economy was a bit tight at first. In some games like 2 Point Hospital or even The Sims, you can reach a point of infinite money very quickly and the progression stops mattering. In Tailside, that espresso machine upgrade is expensive, you have to save up for 3 in-game days to afford it. That friction makes the reward feel earned. When I finally bought the 3-group head machine that let me brew multiple coffees at once, I felt a genuine sense of accomplishment. I didn't just unlock it, I'd worked for it. It captures that one more day syndrome that Stardew Valley perfected. I'll just play one more day to buy the rug, okay, one more day to buy the lamp, and suddenly it's 2 AM. If you hate the grind entirely, there is a sandbox mode available from the start, but I recommend sticking to the career mode with extended days. The slow accumulation of furniture items turns your cafe into a visual timeline of your success. That first ratty rug you bought, that's history. Now let's talk about the vibe, because if you're buying this game, you aren't buying it for the math, you are buying it because it looks like a warm hug. The art direction here is incredible. We see a lot of pixel art in the indie space, but Tailside understands lighting in a way that few 2D games do. The lighting engine is a secret weapon. When the in-game clock hits 5 PM, the golden hour kicks in. The whole cafe is bathed in this deep, saturated amber glow. It warms up the screen, it genuinely makes you feel warmer just looking at it. It changes the emotional tone of the game. The morning feels productive and crisp, lots of cool blues and greys. The evening feels cozy and winding down, lots of oranges and deep browns. It makes you want to stop serving coffee for a second and just look. And then there's the characters. In many pixel art games, NPCs are just static cardboard cutouts that slide across the screen. In Tailside, they breathe. The animation work is subtle but stellar. When a customer takes a sip of their drink, their ears twitch. When they are waiting, they tap their paws. It's these micro animations that sell the fantasy. You stop seeing them as customer number 4 and start seeing them as the bear who likes cappuccinos. And if you want to bring that aesthetic into your real life, check out the merch shelf below. We just dropped the new tea time hoodies and mugs, and they are designed to be as cozy as the games we play. This leads me to the most important feature of Tailside, which isn't listed on the Steam page. It's a sleep aid. I mean this as the highest compliment. We live in a world of high anxiety. I found myself booting up Tailside not to beat it, but to cleanse my palate after a stressful day. I played it for 45 minutes before bed and it worked better than melatonin. It occupies just enough of your brain to stop you from doom scrolling on your phone, but not enough to wake you up. It is digital chamomile tea. If you own a Steam Deck, this is a must install. Now a quick note for my Nintendo friends, this is currently a PC only release, however the developer has expressed strong interest in bringing it to the Switch in the future, and honestly, it belongs there. The controls map perfectly to a gamepad, and the cozy vibes are amplified when you can curl up under a blanket with it. It feels native to handheld play. However, we have to stay grounded. My job is to tell you exactly what you are buying, and Tailside is not perfect. In fact, its simplicity, which is its greatest strength, is also its greatest weakness. I call it the Fishbowl effect. You see this beautiful town in the newspaper, you hear customers talking about the bakery down the street or the park nearby, but you can never go there. I found myself desperate for a mechanic that would let me leave the shop, even just a simple menu screen to go to market to buy beans manually. I wanted to see the world that these characters inhabit. By confining us strictly to the counter, the game can feel a bit claustrophobic. It breaks the immersion slightly because it reminds you that you are just a mechanic in a box, not a person living in a town. This brings me to my biggest grapple with the game, the takeout problem. You spend hours unlocking beautiful tables, rugs and lamps, you design the perfect cozy reading corner, and what do the customers do? They order, they stand at the counter, they drink, and they leave. They very rarely sit down. They don't interact with the furniture. It makes the decorating aspect feel purely cosmetic rather than functional. I wanted to see the cafe fill up. I wanted to see the background noise increase as more animals sat down to chat. Because they don't, the cafe feels empty even when it's busy. If I could ask the developers for one patch, it would be this. Let them sit more often, and for longer. Let me see my space being used. It would add so much life to the late game. A quick technical note on the audio, while the tracks are lovely, the loop is short. If you play for the long days like I suggested, you will hear the same track 5 or 6 times in a row, and it can get repetitive. I eventually turned the in-game music down and put on my own lo-fi playlist. It's not a deal breaker, but it's definitely noticeable. Finally, we have to talk about the content wall. Because this game relies so heavily on that simple brewing loop, you will see everything the game has to offer within the first 4 to 5 hours. There are no massively deep skill trees, there are no secret endings. Once you unlock the final machine and the final tier of furniture, the game is effectively over. If you are a player who needs constant novelty, new mechanics introduced every hour, you will bounce off this game. You have to be okay with repetition, and you have to find joy in the routine itself. But there is a wildcard here, a factor that could change the math entirely. The developers have been very vocal in their devlogs about one specific feature, mod support. We're actually discussing the potential mods right now in our Discord, and if you want to be part of that inner circle, consider joining as a channel member. You get the badge next to your name, exclusive emotes, and access to the members only channel where we vote on which indie gems I'll review next. Tailside is built on an engine that is ripe for community content. The developers have promised Steam Workshop integration. Think about what that means. Custom furniture packs, new animal species as customers, fan-made story expansions, new recipes. If the community takes hold of this game, it could become a platform, not just a static experience. We've seen this happen with Stardew Valley. The base game is amazing, but the mods kept it alive for a decade. Tailside has that same potential. The grid-based furniture system is perfect for pixel artists to add their own creations. However, as a reviewer, I have a rule. Don't review the promise. Review what is on the screen today. We can hope for a thriving mod scene, we can hope for updates that let the customers sit down more often, but right now you are buying the base experience, and you need to be okay with that base experience being a beautiful, fleeting 6-hour journey. So how do we value a game like this? In the gaming community, we have a toxic obsession with dollars per hour. We look at a $60 game and say, if it doesn't give me 60 hours of gameplay, it's a ripoff. We judge value by volume. I reject that math, especially for the cozy genre. We should look at Tailside through the lens of a movie ticket. This game costs about the same as going to the cinema and buying a popcorn. A movie gives you 2 hours of entertainment. Tailside gives you about 6 to 8 hours of high quality, polished, relaxing bliss. Is it short? Yes, but it respects your time. It doesn't bloat itself with fetch quests just to pad the runtime. It comes in, gives you a warm hug, and leaves before it overstays its welcome. Tailside is not a game that tries to do everything. It tries to do one thing, create a stress-free atmosphere, and it succeeds brilliantly. It is imperfect, it feels a bit lonely at times, and I wish I could explore the town, but in those quiet moments when the music swells and the coffee grinder whirs, it achieves something rare. It lowers your heart rate. In a year full of noise, Tailside is a quiet corner, and sometimes that is worth more than 100 hours of content. If you are looking for a complex restaurant management sim to challenge your brain, this isn't it. Wait for a sale. But if you are looking for a digital sanctuary, a place to escape to for 30 minutes before you sleep, this is a must-buy. I want to know, what is your sleep aid game? Is it Tailside? Is it Euro Truck Simulator? Or are you one of those people who relaxes by playing Dark Souls? Let me know in the comments, I read every single one. And if you want to see more hidden gems like this, make sure to click that subscribe button. We are building the coziest corner of the internet, and we'd love for you to pull up a chair. I'm JT, and I'll see you in the next one.